Welcome back. Jan Phillips is a teacher and an author, and I think this is more descriptive, a catalyst for original thinking and inspired action. Author of No Ordinary Time, The Art of Original Thinking, and many other books. Co-founder and executive director of the Living Kindness Foundation, nice use of that word, a global network of grassroots philanthropists transforming creative potential into compassionate action. So would you please give a warm Inside Edge welcome to Jan Phillips.
Thank you. Thank you, Larry. He's a wannabe comic, isn't he? Well, it feels great to be back here. I think I was here before, right after The Art of Original Thinking came out. And it was a fabulous group. And I remember thinking, this is almost worth moving to Orange County to be a part of. It's just so, I'm Reverend Patty. So it's good to see some faces that I recognize here. And so, of course, you know I have a new book out, which is taking original thinking to the next level. And this one is on the subject of evolutionary creativity and the rise of spiritual intelligence. Because, you know, I keep going back to my family and noticing how different I am from them and from who they think I am and from who they want me to be. And they would love me to just, you know, be corralled back into that little box where I'm easy to figure out. But I notice things like they say, let's go to Mass on Saturday night so we can get it over with, right? Things like that. Big Catholic family, but you know, any of you who are former Catholics, or even current, there's still some current Catholics, I know. You know the obligation that goes with, you know, attending Mass. But when I speak of my spiritual practice, it has nothing to do with Mass because Mass is in the category of religion. So I think the first part of spiritual intelligence is knowing, not just knowing it here and having your feeling about it, but we're at the point where we have to start manifesting our wisdom. So being able to articulate the distinction between religion and spirituality so that we can be of use to other people, because Lenny Bruce said way back in the 50s, people are leaving the churches in droves in order to find God. And now it's even more the case because the institutions are becoming more and more suspect, right? And so most of you know from my last talk here that I was kicked out of a convent and at the age of 20. Thank you very much. Because I was like a union organizer in a Walmart to them, and it wasn't a good fit, and everybody knew it. So the fork in the road became, you know, the opportunity for me to figure out how can I be a nun when they don't let me? How can I be of use and service in the world in that inspired way that I wanted to be, although I'm out here as a secular person? So to be able to figure out how to live a creative life was a big deal for me, because since I was 12, my plan was to be a nun. So I moved to Newport Beach right after, in 1969, right after I was dismissed, and tried to figure out my life here. And I lived right on the beach. I was right across the street from that Catholic church that has a school attached to it. I taught the kids folk guitar lessons and tried to do folk masses there. But because I was also coming out as a gay person, I then could not get absolution in my church for it unless I tried to stop being gay, which I wasn't. It's like stop liking chocolate. Right? Stop having blue eyes, would you please? So it didn't work for me. So then, after losing my religious community, I lost my church. So then it was a bigger quest to figure out how I could be even a spiritual force and person in the world, short of having an institution or a community to belong to. So now I'm 62 years old. I have figured it out. And you all have figured out your own spiritual path. And this is this is the Illuminati. I'm aware that I'm with the Illuminati here. And there's many things I don't have to say because you already know that. So in the distinction between creativity and evolutionary creativity, I'm going to give you some examples of how that's working in my life right now, because I think we're all creative by default. You can't not be creative. If you're a blasphemer, if you say I'm not creative, it's just, might as well say I'm not breathing, because if you're breathing, here's how you're a creator. You're telling stories. You're making up stories about what happened to you all day long, and then you go home and you tell your partner or your spouse or your cat or your beloved, and you make up quite an imaginative story where you're the hero and everyone else is the villain, right? And it's just a very little poetic myth that you bring home to your loved ones in order to have them know what you want them to know about your magnitude. So all day long, you're working on the story that you're going to tell at night, right? So that's how you're creative. Now, evolutionary creativity is a creativity that's slightly more high-minded than the mythopoetic. And it's a creativity that has as its source and its force a commitment to use that energy in the service of a better world. Now, you know from your spiritual practice and your spiritual path that on some deep level that we can't talk about because it's not of the language that we can speak, we have a oneness. There's a certain oneness that I have with each of you, right? And I could go for a road trip with you from here to Nebraska, and by the time we got to Omaha, we would be in love with each other. Male or female, we would be in love with each other because we would have all that time to unwrap ourselves and to just have nothing but our radiance be the thing that the other sees. And that radiance would be the same as the other has. So the recognition of our oneness would be manifest. But you can't go around saying things like that or talking about that, so we don't talk about it. But it's the thing that has us give money when they come around asking, that has you commit to the organizations that you commit to be of use. So evolutionary creativity is a commitment to use our attractive force and our creative and imaginative essence in order to be a force for good in the world. Because, yeah, you could use your creativity to create a porn movie, right? So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about using your creative juices to construct something that exists in the world that wouldn't be here if it weren't for you. The program in Orange County that has those students donating X amount of hours to community service would not exist if it weren't for Peggy, right? So she and Mary, where's Mary? So Peggy and Mary have an infinite, everlasting effect on this county because of their evolutionary creativity and their willingness to let it loose in the world. Because the other complication is that many of us, more women than men generally, but have a sense of false humility because all of our lives we're taught not to say anything good about yourself, to be quiet, to just be of service, to be behind the scenes, let them have all the credit, right? And so it's not a natural and organic unfolding for some of us to be able to be bold and big about the thing that we're up to. But it's time for us to be bold and big because this world has big, big trouble, right? And 2 years ago when I went to Nigeria Here's an experience that I had. I was invited by a Dominican sister who is the CEO of an NGO, non-governmental organization over there. Now, all of her staff are Nigerians, combination of Christians, Muslims, and tribal people. They all speak a common language. Now, they have identified 20 villages around where they are in Kaduna, Nigeria, to take care of the health and education needs and the pre- and postnatal care needs and the water needs, okay? So that's the commitment of this NGO. But they don't have enough resources and enough ways to figure out how to deal with the problem. So I go in the Jeep. You can only get to some of these by Land Rover, right? So I get in the Jeep. We go to a school. Every single village has 4 classrooms. It's like a big, huge building with 4 classrooms in it. It's all mud floors. There's no desks. There's no windows. There's a door, but there's no door on it. There's a little blackboard sometimes that looks like it survived Dresden. But there's no evidence of, like, alphabets, or books, pencils, nothing. So we go into the village, and all of a sudden I see about 100 children with their they have little uniforms, white and green uniforms, and they're standing there waiting. This is 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Teachers don't come, and they wait, and they wait, and then it's 3:30, and then they go home. And I say, why aren't the teachers here? Because they race up to the Jeep, they pull me out of the car, and they, please, please, be our teacher, be our teacher. And they pull me all the way into their classroom. Now, I am not a teacher, like they know. So there I am in the front of the classroom, and they're all looking at me like, I go, what's 2 plus 2? They go, 4. I go, great. What's 7 plus 8? 15. And that's all I knew to do. I didn't know anything to do after that. And I just stood there and I practically cried in front of it because the whole scene was it was obscene that these kids want an education so bad. And this thing that they're sitting in has big bombed out floors, mud. They're sitting in the mud. It's awful that kids who want to be taught cannot get taught. So I say, oh, I'm queen of creativity. I can figure this out, right? But I'm having trouble figuring it out because I need help. So I got my Living Kindness Foundation started. I have people across the country who are doing research for me about solar-powered generators for computers, and where do you get the modules that the kids, without the teacher in the classroom, if we go over there and instruct them in the technology, can they hit go and have a learning situation occur? So I'm just here to say that's evolutionary creativity, because it's a creativity that comes out of the awareness that I have a problem. I have a problem because this is my world. And it's true, it's not my county and not my state, but it's my world, and those kids are my kids. This is my planet, right? So for us to know what is the thing that breaks your heart, what is the thing that breaks your heart? Because that's connected to your heart's desire. We're hardwired, as they say. We're hardwired for bliss, but our software is corrupt, right? So we have to fix, we have to fix things and get tuned up and upgraded. So for us to remember that the thing that breaks your heart is the thing that's connected to your heart's desire. And once those 2 things come together, that's probably where you'll get the juice and have a creative combustion about where you're here to be of use. Because if you can remember, there was probably a time in your cosmological history when your soul had an experience of looking at the earth and it said, I think I can help. I think I can help. And it goes, okay, give me a body, I'm going down. Right? But that journey through the birth canal is the great forgetting journey. So you forget. What were you going to do? Shoot, I can't remember. So you end up being a clerk typist or something. You know, you end up working at a golf club. You can't remember. But the thing that helps us remember, that would be called your soul's mission or your destiny, are the adventures in your life that you've had where you felt most alive and most free and most purposeful. Those are your clues for knowing what's the arena that you make change in, that you shine the light that only you have. Because sure, other people can know what you know, but they can't love like you love. They can't speak like you speak. They can't hug like you hug. And those people who are waiting for you, it's like that Balinese dancer said, there's someone out there who needs you. Live your life so they can find you. Right? So for us, the question is, where can I be of use? You know, I just told you I need you. I need you with my project. If any of your hearts are broken by that scene, then come to me afterwards because I need you. But there's other areas where you're called, and it has to do with what would you fix. I'm going to ask you to just sit still for a minute, close your eyes, put your feet on the floor, get comfortable in your chair, get fully in your body. Ask this question of your heart. If I had a magic wand and could fix anything in this world, what would I fix? If I had a magic wand and could fix anything, what would I fix? What would give me so much joy if I could just help fix this problem and see what it is? Okay, see what that is. And now ask yourself this second question. What exists in the world because I'm alive? What have you created that exists in the world that would not exist had you not been born? So Peggy and Mary come up with two different examples. Don't use the one, because we know that one. So come up with another one. Something that exists in the world because you're here. It could be a recipe, a garden. You know, think imaginatively. Something that exists. And do not use children. You can't use children. That was too much fun. Right? Something that exists because of your creative energy and commitment. Okay? Give this a moment. Okay, now look at your table and figure out, without too much chaos, who is your talking partner? Get a talking partner and tell the two things that you now know. One, if I had a magic wand, I'd fix this. Two, what exists because I'm alive is this. With some economy, okay? Go ahead. Did you two finish?
Yes.
Both of you talked?
Yep.
Okay. I knew I could trust you. Did you guys finish? Are you finished? Okay, wrap it up. Wrap it up. Okay. I'm just going to go around and randomly ask a few of you the question, if you had a magic wand. So, and I'm just hoping to get a phrase, right? I'm not hoping to get a biography. So, because I want to do most of the talking. All right. If you had a magic wand, what's the thing you'd fix?
Get rid of political parties.
Get rid of political parties. Scott, if you had a magic wand.
Conflict between people.
Conflict between people. Patty, magic wand. What would you fix?
I would fix the poisoning of America with the manufactured food.
Manufactured food issue. Okay. Here, what would you fix? Karen.
I would fix the financial situation of the entire world.
Financial situation. Yay.
I would teach parents in Cambodia not to sell their children and teach them to love it.
Parents in Cambodia to love their kids and not sell them. Here, Lisa.
I would ask the administrators in my department to actually show love and respect to the students.
Oh, you can do that. You have a magic wand, your voice. Okay, here. What would you do with your magic wand?
I think I'd educate retarded children.
Okay, what would you do with your magic wand?
I would make sure that humans don't see others as an enemy.
As an enemy. Good. Kathleen, what would you do?
Well, it relates to what Kevin said. If I had a magic wand, I would make people understand that those who are different from themselves are just as good. And specifically, we who are not gay over against those who are. There's so many gifts buried in people that we have not taken advantage of.
Okay, so you see, everybody has a little different spin, a little different area that they're drawn to. What you're drawn to is the thing you want to pay attention to, because your desire is your clue. Your desire is the thing that's the answer to what should I do next. That's right. So to identify your heart's desire is the number one question, right? There was this great robot experience where they had programmed a robot for random generated movements, which means basically the robot's going to move and nobody knows how the robot's going to move, right? So they send a robot into the room, it's daylight, and they have chicks, little baby chicks. Now I tell you this, I'm a farmer from upstate New York, right? I know the old country roads, and I know when you drive down the old country roads at night and you go by the chicken farmers' coops, the lights are on. And the reason the lights are on in the chicken coops all night long is what? Why lay more eggs? They're happier because chickens are afraid of the dark. Right? So if you turn the light on, they're happy, they lay more eggs. So that's the thing. You didn't learn that in your first year of agricultural college, did you, Peggy? You weren't paying attention. All right. So anyway, so here's the experiment. Don't ask me how they come up with these things. Get the random generated programmed robot. Send it into the room with the chicks. It's daylight. Okay, so the robot goes into the room and he does all of his random moves and there's no big deal and the chicks are all just wandering around. Experiment A. Experiment B, turn off the lights. Send in the random generated programmed robot. Watch what happens. So in this experiment, all the chickadees were huddled in a corner in the room. And they put a candle, a lit candle, in the hand of the robot. And the robot, who was supposed to be making random moves, spent an inordinate amount of time in the vicinity of the chicks. So now, this robot is supposed to be all over the room, is over in the corner with the chicks. Why is that? Because the desire of the chicks overcame the programming of the robot. That's why your heart's desire is the place to go to inquire within. It's a good thing to ask, what is my heart's desire? It's not selfish. Tony DeMello says, do what you want. That's not selfish. Selfish is expecting other people to do what you want. Right? Write it down. Do what you want. That's not selfish. Selfish is expecting other people to do what you want. So, we have a lot of erroneous beliefs. That's why we talk about spiritual intelligence. By the way, here's a good way to make the distinctions between religion and spirituality. Religion is the menu. Spirituality is the meal. Right? Religion is the score. Spirituality is the symphony. People need metaphors. When you say it like that, they get it. That religion is the code, the dogma, the word, right? Spirituality is the living of it out. So, pick one, duh, right? So, for you to be able to raise your own spiritual intelligence means, this is how Walt Whitman says it in preface to Leaves of Grass, re-examine everything you've ever been told or have read in any holy book and dismiss what insults your soul. That's why people are leaving the churches. Because we have evolved in our own thinking to such a degree that we now know what they're saying from the pulpit insults our souls. You cannot speak without integrity in the presence of me anymore, or in the presence of you anymore, right? So that's because we're going up the stairway up towards our spiritual genius. So what happens then is we need to revisit some of our inherited beliefs, right? And the best way, one of the things, it's kind of like what Kathleen was saying this morning about the gays and straights. It's like we have been so programmed and conditioned to think, put that person in the category of the other, that we never really have much experience. But when you put the two others together, the same thing happens when your battery dies in your car and you get those cables out, right? You put it on the positive and the negative, right? And what happens to the two ends if they hit together? Sparks fly. Because sparks fly when you get the positive and the negative together, or the masculine and the feminine together. When you get the masculine and the feminine together, you get a new baby sometimes, right? The sperm and the egg, the two opposites colliding causes a higher synthesis, a creative combustion, and that's what we're looking for in our lives. So we're going to look at a videotape now that I made, which is on transformation. It was kind of framed around hope because I was invited to be the kind of shaman at a nuns conference. They might call it liturgist, but I wouldn't. So anyway, they had the subject was hope and transformation. And I said, well, I'm not big on hope. It's my least favorite virtue because I always thought of it as a passive virtue. I said, I'm totally against people just sitting around waiting and hoping that it works out. So I said, let me give hope another chance. So I'm going to rethink hope and see if it speaks to me in a new way. So a couple of days, I thought about it in my prayers, dwelled on it, hope, hope, hope. All of a sudden, it reframes itself. Reframes itself. Now I see it as the vessel. It's like a sacred chalice. Hope is the container for the new idea that has to make its way from the realm of possibility to the manifest reality. And where does that live while it while the probability wave is collapsed, right? It lives in the container or in the feeling or in the commitment called hope, right? So we have hope in order to protect the little embryonic new vision that we have while it makes its way into manifest reality. So after I had a new spin on hope, then I, of course, wanted to make a video on it. So this is it. The text is all from my book, The Art of Original Thinking. But, and I'm just going to explain some images. You're going to see some really wacky images. Not wacky, but you're going to wonder what they are. It's women in Monument Valley with veils. And I often lead women on sabbatical for the soul adventures. And this was one such thing where there was a lot of photographers on the trip. So we were just saying, put these veils on, do that, because we're looking for metaphoric images. So this is a collage. You know, you creators, a lot of you work with collage. You pick a little here, a little there. So this is a collage of my thoughts of a beautiful piece of music from Ashana, who works with crystal bowls, and you might have her here one day. She's brilliant. So Ashana's music, my thoughts, and my photographs. And so we'll look at it, and then we'll talk a little bit.
Transformation originates in people who see a better way or a fairer world. People who reveal themselves, disclose their dreams, and unfold their hopes in the presence of others. And this very unfolding, this revelation of raw, unharnessed desire, this deep longing to be a force for good in the world, is what inspires others to feel their own longings, to remember their own purpose, and to act, perhaps for the first time, in accordance with their inner spirit. Transformation involves a major shift in consciousness that results in a new way of being and acting in the world. It leads to embodied insight. It is deeper than a revelatory idea, which may remain cerebral and particular to the thinker. Transformational thinking is cellular, non-local. It belongs to the whole. It is in service to the whole. Transformation is a human family affair. It does not happen because we will it or work for it. It comes gratuitously when we clear the passageways between our minds and hearts, when we trust and act upon our body's messages, and when we master the art of transcending duality, which simply means that instead of resisting what appears to be other, we embrace it, bring it into ourselves, and see what transpires when the poles unite. It is not the task of visionaries, thought leaders, prophets, mystics, to know the answers, but to articulate the questions we face as a people and to call us together to create our solutions. It is time now to repattern our thought processes and disavow all notions of our powerlessness as individuals. It is the thoughts and actions of individuals that have created the world we experience today, and it will be the thoughts and actions of individuals that create the world we will live in tomorrow. We are those individuals, and this is our time to break through every wall that has kept us from wholeness, every border that has kept us from the other, and every belief that has silenced and disempowered us. What makes original thinking original is that it synthesizes the outer and the inner and arrives at a new awareness that encompasses them both. It is a dynamic process that incorporates thoughts we receive from the outer world and insights we hold in our inner world, gleaned from our experience, our intuitions, our sensibilities. Original thinking does not favor the letter of the law over the spirit of the law, or vice versa, but shapes a new and creative thought form from the basic elements of the two. This is the alchemy of the creative process. It does not set hydrogen against oxygen, but incorporates the two and yields water. As agents of evolution, we are converting intelligence into informed action, just as leaves convert water and carbon dioxide into sugar and oxygen. Photosynthesis is the work of plants. Infosynthesis is the work of humans. There is more information in the daily news than our ancestors were exposed to in their entire lives. And our job as a human race is to absorb it and use it for the benefit of the whole, just as our bodies metabolize food for the benefit of every cell. Spiritual intelligence is evolving through us as our DNA adapts to the stresses and complexities of the times. There are choices we can make, actions we can take that cause our DNA strands to relax and unwind, allowing us to access deeper levels of creativity. It is creativity and originality that we need to evoke these days as we search for solutions in every enterprise. And that process is a spiritual process, a journey inward. It is an exploration not of the known, but of the unknown and yet to be created. A journey into the center and out to the edge.
So, you know the difference between a mystic and a prophet is the mystic is the one who is aware of the unity and the oneness of all things. The mystic dwells in the place of oneness and causes that oneness to expand by virtue of her being. The prophet is the one who speaks out when that unity is disrupted. So in my opinion and my hope, this video would appeal to the both of us, because inside each of us is a mystic and a prophet. Right? What makes a mystic? It's a person who has an unmediated experience of the divine or infinite mind, supreme intelligence. One who is like a satellite dish who's receiving constantly the coding and the messaging that's coming into us from intelligence at large. That's a mystic. It's no big deal. Anybody could be one. You only have to commit time to it. Commit time and solitude to the receptive mode. And if you don't want to be one, it's no big deal. But I do, and I am. Right? And so to take that to the next level, then, to become prophetic, is to figure out, based on who I am, and what I know, and what my creative gifts are, what is the best way to bring more light to the world? Now, everybody, we all know there's masters at doing this. Steve Behrman is a master New Thought comedian, right? He's a comedian, and all of his jokes have to do with the realm, the mystical realm, right? Every person has an ability because of our unique gifts. I do it because I'm a photographer and a singer and a poet. That I do it. I came out as a poet in this book, right? And I published it myself because I don't want to deal with a publisher who's so small-minded and says you can't put poetry in a nonfiction book. You know, and this book has sold faster than any other book I've ever written. It's just going out the door like hotcakes because I believed in myself. And it's the greatest thing I've done because it marries the mystical and the prophetic. And that's what we're up to do. It's what we're here to do. And each of you knows the area where your creativity is the juiciest. And that's where you want to go in order to be the servant of unity that you're here to be. So if it's in baking or knitting or painting, if it's golf, then have a golf tournament for my Living Kindness Foundation, right? You don't want to do something, you're not going to catch me with a blank canvas and a paintbrush because I get anxious. But, you know, give me a camera, you know, and I'm good to go. So I use my creativity as a means of electrifying the masses in whatever way I can to get them aware of their own creativity. That's what we want to do, because largely we know if she can do it, I can do it. You know, and Hafiz has that great poem called Why Aren't We All Screaming Drunks? Because the mystics, you have to talk about it metaphorically. You cannot talk about the real one, the great beloved, in anything less than metaphoric language. So the mystics, the Islamic Sufi mystics, use drunkenness. They might say, I'm going down to the tavern to get so falling down drunk on God I'll never walk again. Right? So Hafiz has this poem that's something like, one day the sun glimpsed the greatness of the universe and shone her light over all that exists. And now she does it all the time. And God peeks out from behind God's veil and notices this with great delight. With this kind of miracle happening every day, why aren't we all screaming drunks? Hafiz's guess is this: any thought that you're better or less than another quickly breaks the wine glass. Any thought that you're better or less than. So we just try, here's a spiritual practice, try and get through one day, 1 hour, where you don't have a thought, well, at least I'm not as bad as they are. Or, oh my God, I'll never be as good as she is. Try and do it. If you can do it and get into bed at the end of the day and say, I did it, then you're moving towards the place you want to be. Okay, my time's up. How'd that happen? Time's up. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to be your